Welcome back to the Second Take podcast. My name is Jimmy, and I'm sitting here with Pastor Steve Thomas. How you doing, man?
Hey, man, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. It's warmed up a little bit, so it was too cold at the first of the week.
I know, it's so nice right now. It's 70 degrees this morning, sitting on the back deck, man, a deck patio. It's so good. South Florida, January. This is what we're talking about.
Yeah, man, and we're sitting here on the cusp of a new year. We got our leadership meeting, our members meeting tonight. What I learned going into this year is there's a lot of work to be done as a pastor at the first of the year. I'm sitting with Steve, and we're thinking about 2026, and we're like, okay, what's God want to do? What should we do?
Man. And then you got to implement.
Yeah.
And you're like, and the thing of it is, I think that's interesting and helpful, is you're like, the church, you cannot just continue to run it back. You know, the gospel's too precious to do that. You know, there's a sense of, we always need to be thinking fresh about how, have fresh thoughts and fresh ideas about how does God want to reach people this year. Because culture changes, people change, opportunities change. And he said, well, the gospel doesn't change. It's right, it does not change. But the way people perceive and understand and the connections that we have, they do change. And it's like saying, well, we're going to continue to call people on their landlines. Good luck with that.
Yeah. Or knock on doors.
Please
don't knock on my door.
Oh, you're going to be shot.
Yeah.
And no one answers their door if they don't know it. And a lot of times you're going to be arrested. So, well, we'll go to jail for Jesus. Well, that's really not going to help things. You're just going to annoy people. Let's not annoy people. And if you read the Gospels, which I hope people have, you're reading about how Jesus goes from town to town, and he uses different approaches with people, certainly different between prideful and humble. But he is always on the move, and he's always going to the next thing. And I love that. And I think as leaders, we have to, if we're going to be faithful, we always have to think, how do we as a church reach the people around us? And one of the great things about South Florida is there's so many people who don't have any idea really what the gospel is. They may have heard the name Jesus, yes. They may know a few stories, but they don't know what the gospel can do in their lives. And so our job, that's why Jesus gave us this job, is figure out how to reach them. And that's an exciting thing. But you're right. It's like, man, we got to do budget. We got to get people, we got to get some program. We got people going. We got to evaluate what we're doing, or we need to make some changes, and we are making some changes. And so it's a lot, but I'm thrilled to be on this journey with you and with the rest of our team. And we have a bunch of our leaders going to an event this Saturday to strategize. And that's really exciting to me, because when people want to share the gospel, that means Jesus really matters. Yeah. And when they want to have a strategy for how do I reach people, that's what this is all about. That's what our lives are all about. And so I'm excited. But yeah, I'm ready. You almost like, man, I'm ready for February.
But speaking about what really matters and what culture says matters, it's your life, yourself, your self-centeredness, and your money and your education, and you're the most important thing. Mm-hmm. You preached a countercultural sermon this past Sunday about living an other-centered life based on Jesus, what he was teaching and Luke speaking. So maybe just sum that up for us. What do you want us to take away from this sermon entitled "Other-Centered Life"? Yeah,
I do think we are constantly awash in this idea that, you know, it is all about me, self-actualization. And how do I live in a way that that I get the most out of life? That's all about me. And the thing of it is that Jesus gives us this other-centered approach, which is counterintuitive to think that the other-centered life is actually the best thing for you.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about how Jesus lived and how he taught us to live. If you're living for yourself, that whole thing really doesn't work very well. And as he addresses this guy who comes in with the question, hey, Jesus, you straighten out my brother and help him give me the inheritance I deserve. That's the question, basically. And it's not a bad question. It's fair. But Jesus is like, man, if this is what we're most worried about, we need to step back and go, life consists of much more than your money. And I think that our prayer life is something that we have to analyze. You know, when I go to Jesus, is it about provision, opportunity, straightening other people out primarily, or is it about the things that matter to Jesus? I think when we think about sometimes our prayer lives get really stagnant, really dry, And I think that can be caused by a lot of things. But one of the things I don't want it to be caused by is that all I'm asking for is self-centered requests.
Yeah. And Jesus, right in verse 15, he warns about covetousness and storing up earthly goods here on earth. And I think that is a real danger, especially in South Florida, where people have a lot of money. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are well off here. It costs a lot to live here. And there's dangers in having an abundance. And you see people, and we talk about it, people who are comfortably separated from God. So in what ways can abundance really distance a person from dependence on God?
Yeah, you said it well. I think that you are able to pay for the things that make you feel better. And I think the biggest thing that makes people feel better about themselves is that they have plenty of money. And so that's they want to be separated from the things that cause them to be dependent on anybody else. I mean, our homes are built this way, right? We can drive in our garage without ever seeing anybody. You know, we don't need other people. Just give us our space and leave us alone. Give us our TV and our internet, we'll be fine. So people, the danger with having a lot is that we don't need others and we don't need Jesus. We don't need God. That's what we're trying in our little sinful minds. That's what we're trying to drive at is, you know, the worry about am I going to have enough food or am I going to have enough money? Am I going to look silly or stupid if I have to sell my house and move to something cheaper? Am I going to not have what I need or what I want? And this is a time in my life. Sometimes people get to my stage of life or maybe a little older than me and they get in that retirement zone and they're you know, probably 5 and 10 years older than me. And they're like, this is the time I was supposed to be able to do and just XYZ, whatever it is, travel, own stuff, you know, and then they're like, I want to make sure I get that. And they live their lives that way, but none of that goes with them into eternity. And a lot of times people die young, relatively young, you know, in their 60s, early 70s. And they're like, why did I do all that? And Jesus is saying life is so much more than the stuff you own and attain, even the experiences that you can afford.
Yeah, and we see this in this parable about building the bigger barns, and he's like, you fool, this is foolish way to live. Your soul is going to be demanded of you today. There's no U-Haul driving to heaven. You know?
We don't believe that.
Yeah, there's no U-Haul driving to heaven.
I don't think people really believe that. We know that story, right? There's no U-Haul attached to a hearse, you know, and you can't take it with you. And you know, how much did he leave? He left all of it. We all know those little catchy sayings, but I think when it comes down to it, I don't know that we believe it. And I think you almost have to get in the hospital and recognize that, you know, get in a sickness place. If I die, I'm leaving it all.
And I think having a right understanding of what you have in the first place, the prioritization of it is like saying, hey, I'm just a steward of this. And just when you start having that mind frame, it's like, okay, I may have a lot of money, I may have a lot of blessings, but that means God has entrusted me with something. What am I doing with it for his kingdom and for others? Yeah,
exactly. I mean, I think the family aspect is a great way to think about this, right? You have small children, I have grown children, and you're stewarding those children. You're loving them, you're raising them, you're sacrificing for them, you're doing whatever it takes, you're keeping them healthy, you're taking care of them when they're sick, you're doing all this stuff knowing that the goal is that they launch.
Yeah.
Even if they launch across the street, you're looking for them to have their own, be able to stand on their own 2 feet, have their own homes, raise their own family. You're not really, that's going to be riches for you and grandchildren is all that's great, but you're not raised. I don't want to raise my kids to live in my house until they're old.
Yeah.
I want to raise them to launch. And so when God gives us something, what he's saying is, I'm giving you this as a steward. So the money is the same idea, is I'm giving you this to take care of, knowing that it's not really for you to accumulate and just hoard.
Yeah.
Now, you know, side note, you should be planning. I said this on Sunday. You shouldn't be like retiring with nothing. You know, you should, as much as you can, if you can't save anything and all that. But I mean, as you live your life, you should be going, I don't want to be a burden on my children. I don't really live because I want to leave money to them so much as I don't want to leave a burden to them. You know, I want to make sure that we get through our retirement and we're able to not, you know, cause them to, gee, Dad, you know, I got to take care of you. And kids should take care of their parents. They really should. But we live with what God gave us. Our first question is, God, what did you give this to me for? even your if you've worked for a long time, you have retirement savings, you have inheritance, whatever funds or whatever wealth has come into your life. The question is, God, what do you want me to really do with this, rather than just take the worldly view? Well, obviously you want me to have whatever it is.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's like, what is this actually for? And Jesus comes and he talks about the possessions and he warns of that, but then he transfers to anxiety. He says, do not be anxious. Why do you think Jesus moves from the parable about possessions to teaching about anxiety?
Because we're all nervous about our possessions.
They go hand in hand. It's like, and I'm guilty as well. I look around. I mean, I'm no different. I have my own anxieties, finances, all the things.
I think I told this story one time, but I used to worry about it so much that I started having dreams about it. And I remember, this is a silly story, but we bought a house where I needed a riding lawnmower. Mm-hmm. And I love that riding lawnmower. But my dream, my nightmare I had one night was that I had to sell the house and the riding lawnmower.
What kind of lawnmower was it? I want to know that.
I was just a Craftsman.
Oh, man. Come on, dream bigger.
I know. In those days, it was a big old, I don't know, what would have been like a 5-horse or
like a 16-inch deck.
It was, but I thought it was cool. But I remembered in that dream, I woke up thinking, you got to quit worrying. Because I was worried that we're going to afford this house. I was in sales, and if you don't sell, your kids don't go to college. You can't, all that stuff. But you start to think, man, why am I anxious about the things that, to the best of my ability, I had gone before the Lord to pray, should we do this? Should we buy this house? You got to have certain things at a house. You got to take care of it. You got to be able to fix stuff. You got to have some furniture. You got to have those things. And you start to learn that anxiety over things is in conflict with your relationship with Jesus. You should plan. You should save. You should not overspend. And that's always a question. Well, should we have gotten this couch or that couch for $100 cheaper? Or should we have gotten, can't we just get the kids used clothes? And you used to there was great secondhand stores so you could get, because kids only wear stuff for like 6 months. And then,
especially small kids, yeah.
And then it's like, why did we spend $50 on that? And now they don't even know they're out of it. Well, so we could give someone else. But you're living in this reality of, I'm going to not be anxious for the basics of life if I am focused on the kingdom.
And that's a good point. So he says, do not be anxious, but seek first my kingdom. What does that practically look like in everyday life? Okay, we're going to cast our anxieties off. We're going to seek first his kingdom. What does that look like for us?
I think the thing that a lot of people skip, and I've done this many times, is we skip the reality. I want to focus on the kingdom first. What we focus on first is our own needs. When we get our priorities right, and we go, Jesus, our goal is to raise this family to honor you. Our goal is to be a blessing to our neighbors. Our goal is to reach out into the entire world. That starts to change your thinking about that. That's why in the Lord's Prayer, the Our Father, the model prayer, I like to call it the model prayer, it says you're going to ask for the basics of life, which means I'm going to trust him for the basics of life. If I'm going to seek first the kingdom, I'm going to trust him to supply my fundamental needs. It doesn't really work the other way. If you say, I'm going to seek my fundamental needs, and then for whatever I have left over, I'll give to him, that's when people live really anxious lives, because you're like, I'm constantly worried, because you're dependent on yourself. You're stepping outside of what his economy is. That's why giving the first tenth of whatever you receive is a great practice, because it reminds you that I am seeking first the kingdom, and I'm doing that with my money, so that I'm trusting him to provide for the rest of it.
And there's promises there. He says, seek first my kingdom, and then all these things will be given to you. If you do this, I'm going to take care of you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's what's so hard for people to get, especially in an economy where it costs so much to live. They're like, I can't give that kind of money. I can't put God first in that way. I'm like, well, I don't know that you could afford not to. And I think that's what I would love for people to understand. People who are generous and who give to the church, they get that. And I do think there are times when you do have a problem with that. But I think in general, that should be your life, the way your life is set up. when you're generous and when you give your first 10%, you're saying, I'm seeking you first. And financially is one of the best ways to say, I'm trusting you. I'm seeking you first. And so when I do that, I put myself in a position to not be so anxious. God, I'm trusting you. I'm not going to be frivolous. I'm not going to be wasteful, but I'm not going to spend all my nights worried that am I going to be able to pay the bills? Am I going to be able to put food on the table? Am I going to be able to get clothing? Jesus says, I take care of the birds. I'm feeding them. I made these incredible flowers. Don't you think you're more valuable than that to me? And I think that a lot of people come into a relationship with Jesus and they never get that. They're never taught that reality, that seeking him first means in your time, in your thinking, before we go to sleep at night, instead of worrying about the food and your position at work and all that, think about who do I need to bless? Who do I need to help? Who do I need to share the gospel with? Even just a statement of, man, I'm so grateful Jesus is in my life. I'm so grateful I'm forgiven. I'm so grateful he's made me innocent. That's what if we're going to worry, quote unquote worry, we need to worry about, am I sharing? Who can I share with? God, help me think through and strategize that.
Yeah, you talked about getting out of God's provision where you start relying on yourself. What would it change in our lives if we genuinely believed that God was both sovereign and good?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Do you not trust him? I mean,
well, and I do think that's something that, my wife's been really good about going, hey, don't you think God delights in you? Is he good to you? And I think still people see him as that great punisher in the sky. He's just waiting to stomp on you. The truth is, he's waiting to bless you. And he stands ready to bless you rather than, I'm just waiting to hurt you. He died for us. He delights in us. And he would love to give to meet our needs. But he will train us to do that. And sometimes training us to do that can be difficult. And, people learn that, if I were on God's economy and if I were trusting him, I would have so much more peace than if I'm constantly worried about the politics at work. I
know. Everything you're saying is true. It's how we order our lives. If the kingdom is first, all these other things are going to fall in line. Okay, I got a promotion at work. Okay, God, what do you want me to do with it?
Yeah.
Okay, God, I have a difficult person at work. Okay, how do I deal with that? And that's how I try to order my life. Even more so now, I'm like, all right, why am I in this season? What do you want to teach me in this season? Yeah, it's difficult, long day, whatever it is. What are you trying to teach me? Because at the end of the day, you're first.
Yeah, and I would encourage people who are in your zone, especially in that 20s, 30s, and 40s range where you're building your life. And there's a lot of times where you go, why am I doing this?
Yeah, me and John say that a lot. What are we doing? What are we doing?
What are we doing? And you're asking that question. I just remember going, why am I going to all these baseball practices? Well, I learned later those were important days. As I'm driving my kid to the game or the practice, that those were important times. I know that the difficult times. My first job, I worked offshore. I was catching mud samples on a drilling rig, like for 14 days straight. A lot.
Grinding.
It's just grinding. And you're just grinding. You're like, what am I doing? But that led to something else. And that I learned how to work in a tough environment. I learned how to work with people who said funny things you can't repeat. I worked with, all those kind of people. And I learned how to do things that were hard. And you're like, I don't think this is going to last forever. But it is part of God shaping my character. Work hard. Take the lowest job if you have to. And I remember that does form your character, and it puts you in contact with people you would never have contact with otherwise. And that's a good question. Why am I here? Who do you want me to reach? Or who do you want me to at least influence? And how do I represent Jesus in this place? Those are the questions you ask when you are an others-centered person and you're seeking the kingdom first.
And again, the sovereignty, he's led you. He knew you were going to be there. He's put you there, and he's good. So I think about the father relationship. Like my son, Does he always do everything? Either one of them, any of my kids actually. But do they do everything that I would expect them to do?
Yes, they do.
No,
I've seen them.
But there's nothing, and I'm a human being. But there's nothing they could do that would make me not love them.
Oh, yeah.
And I want what's best for them. So at times that means rebuke. At times that means, hey, reward, hey, great job. Sometimes it means encouragement when they're broken. But if we as humans know how to love, how much more does God know how to love?
Absolutely. And sometimes that just means time. And I think if we're going to be other-centered, we're going to have to spend a lot of time with Jesus to get his heart into our chests. And I think, as you know, with the time you spend with your kids is the time that you influence them, even if you're not saying anything.
Yeah.
You're not teaching anything special. We're just fishing. We're just walking. We're just riding bikes. We're just doing whatever. For me, it would be we're just having coffee. We're having breakfast. We're
just together.
We're just together. And that's the other thing I think that we miss so much is that, people want things from God, but they don't spend any real time with him. And they wonder why they feel distant from him. Same reason you feel distant from your sons or your daughter.
Yeah.
If you weren't there, if you traveled all the time, if you were gone, or you didn't even pay any attention to them.
Yeah.
You start to feel very distant. Same true with your wife. And I think when we're going to be other-centered, we've got to develop the heart of Jesus and recognize who he is and what he's going to do. And we start to act like him, and we start to value what he values rather than... And the thing that floored me about this passage this week was that Jesus could have done anything. How many of us, if we had the power that Jesus had, would have not had a house?
Yeah, we have no... We have no restraint, and we're not going to the cross.
I'd have had a really nice white horse
man.
With a chariot.
Not the donkey.
Because that would be so much better to ride around. If we're going to share the good news, we need to have a really nice vehicle.
We're the king. We're the king of kings.
I might not just say, hey, I'm awesome, but I'd be having some stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's and again, it's not against having some things, and you need some things, but it's just like, what is my purpose here, and how do I best reach these people? Here's the wealthiest person that ever walked the face, Jesus Christ, who walked away from, Philippians 2 talks about this, walked away from this incredible position to bless us. So I'm like, what would I walk away from to bless other people?
That's good.
What am I think, I have a right to do this. I've earned it. I've worked hard. But where's the influence that I can have, and what do I need to walk away from to be other-centered? What are the barriers between me and other people that I may not even see? And how do I need to go to them? How do I need to get there? What communities do I need to join, maybe? And that's what I really want us to think about as a church going forward is, you got to be around some unbelievers if you're ever going to share the good news. And
that's good. I was going to ask you a practical step that a believer could take this week to live out one of those truths. Obviously, you said spending time with them, but I think another thing is open your eyes. Take a look around. See who's around you. And you have to intentionally seek out these opportunities. But if we get so stuck in the busyness of ourselves, the self-centered life, you don't know all the things that are on my plate. I can tell you what, everybody has those same things.
Exactly.
But when you're focused on the kingdom and you start that way and you're like, I'm going to open my eyes today and say, God, why am I here? Who needs to see a Christian attitude, a Christian behavior today in this place? You'll start to see there's a lot of people around you that you can influence.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we go, well, I don't know how I could ever influence anyone. Well, do you know anybody? And the first step to being able to share the gospel with someone is to know someone who's lost, and then to be able to spend some time with them. And it's not, I say this over and over again, I'll never stop saying, it's not a sales pitch. It's a presentation of the greatest thing someone could receive.
Yeah.
My job is not to sell, even though I have a sales background. My job is to present and have an opportunity. And I don't want to convince people. I really don't. Unless, I'll share a compelling story, but I don't want to talk them into something that someone else can talk them out of. I want to help interpret what Jesus is already doing. And they go, yeah, that's what I've been feeling in my heart. That's why I feel convicted. I know there's something missing. I feel, I don't know what the future holds. I don't know what my post-death situation is going to look like. Those are all things that we can speak into and begin to help people understand the incredible, incredible gift Jesus offers.
Yeah, and closing this out, I want to encourage you because God's already at work in the people that are there.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I can assure you of that, whether you think that or not. As a pastor and just being in this area for 5 years, so many conversations, so many people are longing for the peace that we have as Christians with Jesus, and He's calling on you to plant those seeds and to be that person for them.
Yeah, and I would say if you're following Jesus today, but you're not at peace, there's some time, I would say take a step back and spend some time, special time with Jesus, in His Word. Maybe get some counsel from a pastor or a friend, but don't walk around missing the peace that He came to give us. When you seek Him first, and usually the problem is related somewhere to we're not seeking Him first.
Yeah.
We're finding, that's why we're anxious, is because we're seeking all kinds of other things first.
All right, I want to close this in prayer because I think a lot of people do have that anxious spirit. I want to pray. I want to pray against that right now. Let us pray. Lord, as we sit here today in 2026, I'm just grateful for who You are and that You would even be mindful of people like us. I pray for everyone under the sound of my voice. They go to our church, that maybe listen to this podcast, or throughout the world, Lord, who are dealing with this anxiety and this anxious spirit of trying to do everything on their own. Let them lean into You, somebody who loves them, somebody who can amply and way more provide for them than we could ever imagine. And help us to just trust and just give up our control to You and let our lives be lived out in the way that You would want to happen, Lord. Give us our needs, calm our anxiety, and help us to live a life that's others-centered so that they can have the same peace that we experience, Lord. Thank You for the cross. Thank You for everything that You do for us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thanks, Jimmy.